page open over here to make sure that things are working. And then we'll do the recording. And Barry, I didn't ask you, have you got a backup ready?
Nope. Do you need me to?
Yes, I would like to make sure that we have a backup recording. Please, always do. It says live. Why does it not say? There it is. Let me check the audio. Okay, so that's working. For our viewers out there, and I know there are a couple of you who have tuned in, we're going to start in just a second as soon as I make sure everything else is ready. And I'm very annoyed because my current setup has an echo. So I hear myself echoing just about half a second behind what I say. So it's like I have to be one of those guys on TV with the guy talking in their head, except that the guy talking in their head is myself. It's bad stuff.
Is that on TV or is that in the mental institution?
All of the above. Okay. So everybody's ready. Barry, you got a backup going?
It is rolling.
I'm afraid to touch that.
I don't know what that means, Mitch.
Yeah, I ought to have that recorded. All right, we're going to start the recording in 3, 2, 1.
Hello? Anybody home?
Hi, Mitch.
Hi, Mitch. It's me, your dad.
Hi, Daily Visitor here. Just wanted to thank you for all your time and effort put into the site. Planet 5D has become a vast resource for me.
Welcome to Anything and Everything, DSLR and beyond. This is the official Planet 5D podcast.
Welcome, Earthlings. My name is Planet Mitch, and I come from a place called planet5d.com. This is the Planet 5D podcast. Today we have a special guest by the name of Jem Scofield. Welcome, Jem.
Thank you, Mitch. Hey, Barry.
How are you doing,
Barry's
Jim?
here. Pamela is not with us today, unfortunately. She had something to do with her kids. I don't know why that's important. Kids. Who cares? Today's show is going to be all about Jem and what Jem does for a living and what he doesn't do for a living. We don't have anything extra special set up today.
I don't normally listen to dubstep at 8 o'clock in the morning as I'm on the West Coast, but it definitely woke me
I
up.
think it's dubstep. Introduction is dubstep.
No, the music.
The music. Whoa, whoa,
I've never shown you
whoa.
guys this, but this is my soundboard.
Holy wow.
I bumped the microphone. I'm sorry.
I see sound waves
So,
coming out of your head.
This is my setup. I do want to say one thing to start off, by the way, and we've talked about asking people to do promotions for us, and I got a couple of promos this week that I want to play for you. I want you all to know that I really appreciate these that were sent in, and these are real people who sent these in. I didn't pay them. I didn't ask him to do it. Well, I asked him to do it. I asked everybody to do it. There's a little icon on the right-hand side of the blog. Is that this way or that way? Where you can send me a voicemail. And if you'd like Planet 5D and you'd really love to give us some promo stuff, and Jem, by the way, I'm going to ask you to do this later.
Okay.
So get ready.
Ready.
These are a couple of the ones that were sent in this week.
My name is David Perk from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I just want to say what a fan I am of the Planet 5D podcast. It's one of the most informative podcasts in the industry. If you're an individual like me, either a hobbyist or a professional looking for the best equipment and what's really going on in the industry, you got to check out Planet 5D's podcast. It's well worth your time.
Isn't that awesome? Now, this one from Steve actually came a little while ago, and you guys are going to get a kick out of this.
Hi, Mitch. Your Planet 5D blog is awesome. Been following you for quite some time. Hate to be too critical, but your videos are kind of creepy. Would really appreciate it if we could just get to the meat of the message. I'll probably still keep following Planet 5D. Appreciate all you're doing.
My videos are creepy. But he said nice things.
Which videos in particular is he talking about?
The message is a little longer, and I actually cut it off. He was talking about sometimes I do little videos where I was sitting here and sending tips and stuff, and I'd bounce on my ball and stuff, and he thought that was a little weird. Tom Hicks says...
I'll go on record and say I find it a little weird, too. So him and I have something in common.
You and Steve, you can be buddies.
Yep.
This is Tim Hicks, and I'm a creative professional working out of Southeast Missouri. Planet 5D is my first stop for news and information in the creative photography and video field. I've been following Mitch for years, and I've learned so much by visiting his website. He keeps me informed.
I had a really nice chat with Tom, and we're going to feature him in a couple of days, maybe next week sometime, as soon as he gets a blog post written, because he was doing a commercial for a local car dealer, and he was looking for voiceover talent. And when you see the commercial and hear the voice, you'll think this is a guy from Hollywood, and you'll be really surprised about the backstory. And I'm not going to tell you the backstory because I want you to read the book, not the book, the story.
Sandwich. Okay.
Hey, you got to tease them, Jem. You got to give them a little.
I'm with you.
Jump. You don't.
That wasn't creepy. That little bit you just did wasn't creepy.
What? Playing with my dog? That's Astro. I just realized he wasn't sitting up properly.
He doesn't look at all like Astro. I'm just going to point that out.
Go with it, Barry. Go with it.
All right. It's Astro. I think you should have named him Tralfaz instead, but that's just me.
Named him what?
Tralfaz.
I'm sorry, I don't know that reference.
Did you not? Well, I guess you're maybe a little bit older. You never watched the Jetsons?
I did, but I don't remember that name.
Well, remember their dog Astro?
Yes.
Do you remember the rich guy that took him away because it was really their dog? And so they said Astro backwards, and they named him Tralfaz or something.
No.
So yeah. So if you ever want to have the alternate of Astro, you have Tralfaz.
I see.
That in fact might be Tralfaz sitting on your.
Yeah, I think it's Tralfaz.
Sitting on your podcaster.
I think Jem is laying ownership to Tralfaz and going to take him back to his swanky pad there in Oregon.
Oh yeah, here I am. Not in my swanky pad. I am displaced from my normal location in New Jersey, just outside of New York City, in Oregon, in somebody else's house. And here we are.
You're a squatter?
I am kind of squatting, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
With Nemo the cat, who has a crooked tail. It's fun stuff over here. Exciting.
And you're spying on people because there's a telescope behind you.
No. Okay.
You're not going to admit to it, are you?
I would just like to throw this out here right now because of this horrendous setup that I have. Barry, you clearly win on the most Alexa-like accuracy in terms of your skin tones. You actually look like a human being. Barry and I next to each other. Mitch and I next to each other is not pretty. And Mitch, you do this every week. I'm just going to come and hijack your studio, and we're going to relight it. I'm just saying right now. That's all.
I have asked Barry to work on that. Yes.
Okay.
I like how I have to work on it, but I think we should do a special Christmas edition in the same setting, and if we combine Jem and Mitch, it's kind of like a peppermint candy cane.
Yes.
Red and white skin.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing here. So the eyesight camera is doing wonders here, especially when it encounters two different color temperatures. You clearly, Barry, are using one, and kudos to you for actually having something that looks normal. So at least I know what's happening in the camera, but this is the way I like to look at in the morning.
Well, those 55 viewers out there on the live webcast on Google Hangouts are all laughing at you. And speaking of them, and I apologize, you're right, that light is really bright.
I almost look like a Oompa Loompa, kind of.
You're a bit orange.
I'm basically the Oompa Loompa of today's show. So, look, if I do that, it helps a little. If I hold my hands here for the whole show.
So,
Barry,
what
make
this
sure you put that
podcast
in the
has
show
taught me
notes,
already is that I'm supposed to be taking show notes too. Oh man!
Yes.
So many things I got to be doing. I got to think about what to talk about. I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't have a pen.
Oh man.
What was I gonna say?
Something about Oompa Loompa. Well, we've lost him. Where'd he go? There he is.
No.
He was so embarrassed he ran away.
It's a little better. I wanted, there's just not a lot of light on me now. It's pretty bad in here, in this place. Would you rather me be orange or like...
You're fine. There are 55 viewers. Just want to hear our content.
I'm ready to talk. Let's go.
I do want to say, before we go any farther, for those of you who are watching, if you want to ask questions, scroll down. There's a little box, and you can put in questions and comments, and we'll read them live on the air. I'll be watching over here on the side.
If we are making notes for future shows, I think today we've identified that it is critical for us to have a podcast on how to record good sound and how to do some basics in lighting. So just for your future notes.
For podcasters.
Yeah.
And I normally have that microphone that you were using, Mitch, but
the Rode.
It didn't travel with me. I do, yeah, and I do have a place that looks normal, but I'm just gonna go with this. Cha-ching!
I had to throw in the cha-ching sound.
I guess we're gonna talk about some stuff soon.
Let's talk about what you're doing in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So I'm out here in Oregon. I guess. Do I tell people who I am? Some people know who I am. Some people definitely don't know who I am. I'm just. Should I do an introduction?
Yeah. Let's start there.
All right. So my name is Jem Scofield, and I'm a producer and an educator, and I probably spend about half my life teaching, both in classrooms and online. So I have a website called the C47, and psychotically for 3.5 years I did a daily video podcast.
That was awesome.
And now I'm actually going to start a new show in about a month or so called On Set. And it'll be a weekly show on the C47. It will be a longer format, 2-camera, somewhat like the videos that I produce for Canon, educational videos that I do for them, but a little more down and dirty. All craft-based, no reviews, no thoughts on the industry, just how to do things, having to do with all of the things that you see are done incorrectly right here. And so that'll be a weekly series. It'll be on the C47. It'll be on YouTube and Vimeo. And I have some sponsors, so it will be free content for everybody, and which is what I like. And then I teach at NAB and a lot of conferences. And the one thing that I have coming up when I finish this 2-week film camp that I'm doing for teenagers right now in Oregon is my biannual program called the Filmmakers Intensive. And each time I do it, it's in a different location. We did it in Florida the first year. The second time was in New York, and then this year we're going to do it from July 27th through August 1st, and it's actually going to be right where I grew up in Scotland.
What?
And I have, yes, and I rented a hall for the course, and it's absolutely happening 100%, and I'm really excited about it. People are signing up now. What are you laughing about it? Yay!
I'm laughing because you're giving some implication that there was a possibility that it would not happen.
Well,
Which
it's funny in the education field, and I'm probably not the only person who will tell you this, or maybe people don't talk about it, but when we book workshops and conferences and things like that, they don't always happen, and they just sometimes fall off from calendars and schedules because you have one or two people that sign up, and it just does not make sense to run a 3-day or a 1-week course, or even sometimes a 1-day course.
Right.
And so that does happen every once in a while. But this program is absolutely happening because I have my plane ticket, I've rented the space, and there's going to be equipment there, and it's going to be very intense. We go from 9 in the morning till 9 at night for a week, and it's not a 48-hour film competition. We're not going to go shoot a documentary this time. It's really focused on lighting and shooting for doc and narrative. So it's just really craft-based, and it's just going through each of the sessions to learn things related to craft and get better and up your game. For what?
For a whole week.
For a whole week. And in Scotland, they have beer, they have scotch, they have relatively decent food nowadays. And so we can get it out of the way and just talk about anything we want to talk about. Just go to thefilmmakersintensive.com, or if you want to see the actual schedule, thefilmmakersintensive.com/program, and then there's an application on there. It's a program that's designed for people who already have some working knowledge of using camera systems. We're not going to focus on post, and it's really for people who want to they want to really dig deep and kind of have a destination-based workshop, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be myself and at least one, possibly two other instructors, and we're going to dig deep into a lot of very cool stuff. I'll have a Movi there, a couple of other camera systems. We'll be doing regular speed, overcranking. We'll be outside, inside, a lot of hands-on exercises, rigging stuff, and learning a lot about sound and other areas. So it'll be fun.
How many people are you limiting it to?
No more than 20 people. Generally, the program floats at around, historically, 15 to 20 people. And try to keep it small. I try to keep it very cost-effective because there's obviously other costs associated with doing a destination workshop in terms of travel and staying somewhere and all that stuff. But basically, there's a breakdown on the site in pounds sterling, in euro, and US dollars. In US dollars, the program is $1,500 for the whole week, and then it'll include lunch every day. And for a program like this that goes from 9 in the morning till 9 at night, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I think, based on what I know and what I've been doing as a teacher for a long time. But, I think that's where it needs to be, and I want people to have that education if they're interested in it. So hopefully people will take a look at the site. They can fill out the application, which will be followed up by a phone call by me, and then if they then research and decide that they want to do it, it's basically just a PayPal payment, and they show up, and I help them figure it all out. So it'll be fun. It's good.
It sounds awesome. Am I free to come for free?
Mitch, if you want to come to Scotland and you handle your transportation and all of those things, and you do some Planet 5D from there, you're absolutely welcome to come. You are?
The live show from Scotland.
Barry, you'll come. I can tell we can go out to a pub and hang out for a while. We'll have a lot to talk about.
We are kindred spirits. Do you have any other co-presenters, or is it just you this time?
There's somebody named Ben Barton, who's a UK-based filmmaker. He'll be there, and if we can work it out, a DP and a good friend of mine who did the first two filmmakers intensives. He shoots a lot of docs that are pretty good docs, and he's going to be. His name is Matt Porwall, he'll be in Europe during that time, and we're just trying to work out the logistics. So there's actually an instructors page on the website people can take a look at as far as the people. I'll do the majority of the teaching, and I'm actually used to teaching for a week to 2 weeks straight, so I'm okay with that. But these guys will jump in their areas of expertise, and then Ben, being based in Northern England, he's also going to be helping with a lot of logistics and then also with equipment. So we make sure we have, the stuff that I want to have there at the program. So I'll be bringing some stuff over from the States, and then we'll also have equipment from over there. And then some of my sponsors for the C47 and the Filmmakers Intensive, they'll be sending some stuff over. But we don't need a tremendous amount of equipment for this program. We just need the right equipment so that we can teach these things and then get everybody's hands on the stuff and really let them learn how these things work out. It's pretty exciting, and again, that schedule really shows people what each of the sessions are going to be and what we're going to focus on, and we're going to dig pretty deep. It should be a lot of fun.
What's the website again?
thefilmmakersintensive.com. thefilmmakersintensive.com, and they can also get to it from the c47.com, which is really kind of my main website. Yep.
Since I know, but some other people might not know, why did you choose the name C47 for your website?
It's a good question. It's as an educator, I'm happy to define anything to anybody, but that's the one thing they have to figure out. It's not an airplane, and it's used in production. And the story of why it was called a C or is called a C47 is still debatable. There's still controversy, if you're from the UK, about why it's called a C47. But it's time for people to do their Googles on the interwebs to figure it out. Maybe you should have a prize. You know what we should do, Mitch? I can work this out.
Okay.
We should have a like the first.
I thought it was.
Goodness gracious. Should we do something, Barry, like where the first person who actually finds the answer? It's so yeah.
We should have the people who are watching now. We should give them something. If
we should give them, what we should give them? We should give them the new Smart Lav Plus. That's what we should give them.
There we go.
I can work that out, or Mitch can. Either of us can. That's not a problem.
So anybody who's listening and watching live, if you know where or what the term C47 refers to, please type it into the thing, and the first person to do so, Mitch will announce, and courtesy of Rode and Jem Scofield here, you will win a free Smart Lav microphone.
The new one, Smart Lav Plus. And begin. Okay.
I have one of the old ones right here. See, my Smart Lav.
Someone's got to be typing this in.
I hope so.
Right?
It's only one word or two, depending on how they decide to type it in. Okay, so we'll figure that out. Can we talk about problem solving on set and what that's all about? I just want to say that when things go wrong, and this is going to throw us into a whole different direction. When things go wrong and you don't really know how to fix it, but you get an intuition and you do something to fix it, that is what I call blowing air into the Atari cartridge. And now that's our segue into the thing that we were talking about.
Wait a minute.
Right. Okay.
I only use the blowing technique on the Nintendo cartridges. Did you actually use it on the Atari ones too?
Yes,
this is new. This is new to me.
This is my age. In fact, to me, the correct term is blowing air into the Atari cartridge. Now, you don't physically have to blow air into the cartridge when I use the term now. It is how you fix something with intuition. You don't know what you do. It's like when you just take the dip switches and you go, I'll go up on one and then down on the other and then maybe up on the middle one, and then all of a sudden it's fixed. It doesn't matter what the problem is. If you fix it, but there's no completely logical explanation for it, it's basically like blowing air into in your case, the Nintendo cartridge, in my case, into the Atari cartridge.
See, now I did both.
You did both.
I played both games. I mean, I started on a Commodore 64. So
Montezuma's Montezuma's Revenge is one of my favorite games of all time.
I'm waiting. See, Hollywood has missed the calling because they should make a Montezuma's Revenge movie, and we would all show up in droves for it.
Hours and hours of my life.
Hours of my life.
More than hours. Days. I mean, if there's one game that just sucked my life away, and I became an adult. I went from a child to an adult because I played it so much. Montezuma's Revenge.
Nature.
What I've actually found out, though, that is somewhat counterintuitive to why you name that term for people who use common sense on set to fix problems is it's a misnomer that blowing in it actually helps. It actually over time ruins the cartridges. So it is just a old wives' tale that it works. It's just something where the more we took it in and out, it was what fixed the connections. It had nothing to do with our blowing.
It might have had something to do with I'm not even silence.
Mitch, why don't you chime in? You always find a way to break these odd moments.
I got nothing.
That wasn't creepy.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
So,
all right. Yes.
Where's my cricket sound? Darn it.
You missed your opportunity.
Oh, there's the cricket.
Okay, so I'm going to do what I normally do, which maybe I shouldn't, but I always do it anyway. I'm going to ask you guys about what you're doing and what you're up to.
Barry?
Crickets.
Well, I didn't know who was supposed to take the lead or anything like that.
That's why I threw it your way.
What am I doing? Well, outside of doing the podcast right now, I could spend all day talking. I'm actually in the process of signing the agreement to update the DSLR Filmmaker's Handbook. It's done so
which is
well.
a fantastic book.
Thank you. And so they want me to do an update.
planet5d.com/Barry.
And then, for some reason, my slow summer has taken off like wildfire, so I've been working quite a bit, which is good. And then I am also in the process of putting together another tour. I got a lot of people asking me to.
Good.
I am.
Cool.
Ta-da!
And taking people's kind of suggestions for what they really need to know, because in the first tour we covered a lot. And so paring down to make it a little bit more streamlined as to some of the more common things to, I guess, more or less help people make money and make better stuff quicker. So I will be having some news on that shortly. And then I've been in the process of creating some video training for a couple different places that have asked me to do so. So basically, I'm either shooting or sitting in a dark cave, writing or recording my own voice, which is why I'm going insane. But outside of that, that's probably about the most of it right now.
I can actually see that. Your eyes are darting a lot this morning.
Yes,
so
yes.
That might be the insanity part.
The window shade is actually open today. I actually see sun, which is it's kind of, the fact that I'm not sparkling right now says something.
It's very unusual for Minnesota.
And you, Mitch, besides Planet 5D? Or
Planet 5D?
It's your life. It consumes you.
This is so true. It does consume me. In fact, it's creepy.
Planet 5D.
We have a lot of stuff going on, and it's hard to exactly tell you where to start. We have hired some new writers, which I think is awesome, because it frees me up to do other things. I've got a couple of new extensions to Planet 5D coming in the near future, which I've been talking about for a while, and they haven't happened, but we're going to get there shortly. And we're going to do some online training, so you'll be able to, with Google Hangouts like we're doing here, we'll be able to do some online training, so that's getting set up.
Cool.
Lots of stuff. Anytime you want to do a course, Jem, you just let me know.
Okay. Cool. We'll
So let me ask you, Jem. You do a lot of teaching as well. Same with me.
Yep.
I guess a twofold question. What's the number one thing that you believe people need to know more about that maybe they aren't aware of, maybe they are? And then conversely, what is the number one topic that people want to know, that they're coming to you saying, hey, I really feel like I need to know more about this?
Yeah.
And they
Wow.
could be the same, but they may be different.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. For many years, a lot of people have been asking me to teach the business side of what we do. So a lot of it is the producing, the creating budgets, proposals, and I really pushed that aside for a long time. And then I guess it was about 2.5 years ago, I decided I'll just go ahead and try it. And I did a session, like a little workshop, 3-hour workshop about producing and writing budgets and proposals. And I found that that's an area where people don't have a lot of information, or they've sort of been fumbling around for a long time just trying to figure it out, but they don't have sort of some guidance. And, all I can teach is what I have done for a long time, and this has been successful for me. And so I would say that in a lot of ways, that's one of the things that I think a lot of people need or want to learn about. And so I've been doing more of that. I'll even do a session on that at the Filmmakers Intensive. I've been doing them at Able Cine. I've been doing them at NAB now. I do a show in October. It'll actually be in September this time, called Postapalooza, which is in Michigan. I always do one session having to do with that. I think that's important because a lot of people feel that they have to approach the business side of it in a way that they have to be very careful, that they can't trust their instincts, that they can't be transparent with their potential or existing clients. And I don't believe in any of those things. I think you try to be as transparent as you can. I think you have to have the confidence in what you do, and you also have to trust your instincts. And there are definitely times where you don't want to take a job. And you want to get away from that job as much as you want to be able to make that potential money. It's just not going to work out in the long term. So I think that is obviously not the craft side of our business, but it's just as important. So I've been focusing a lot on that in some of the stuff that I've been doing. And then the craft side of it is trying to, in some ways, push aside the whole, sort of obsession with camera porn and how important every single piece of equipment is that you have. We're at the point right now where pretty much any camera that you pick up, large sensor camera that can shoot at 24 frames per second, is so far superior to what we had in the past. Anybody can create a good image if they can learn basic craft. So for me, it's learning how to control light, learning how to work with light, learning composition, where a camera should be, how a camera should move, is it motivated to move that way or not. It's I don't care if somebody owns a T4i or they own an Alexa. Both of those camera systems are capable of creating pretty pictures now. They can create good images as long as all the other ingredients are put into place. They're obviously very different camera systems, and they're two very big extremes, but if we can learn the craft, you and I can go and shoot with either of those cameras, and we can make something that looks really good. We may not have the same dynamic range, and we may not be rendering skin tones the same way, and there may be some little things here and there, but the basics apply to anything that we're doing. So, so I try to get, I used to be so focused on kit and equipment, and I still love that stuff, but I used to show up with like a truckload of stuff, and over time I've become older and a little bit more simpler in what I think you really are going to need, and then making sure that I tell people about what they need or talk to them about what they need, have conversations about what they might need for the type of work that they're doing, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. So I don't know, that was maybe kind of an answer to what you asked, in a sense.
It was. I mean, I think you split them in two, but if you took all the different things you teach on, what do you think is the one that garners either the most butts and seats or the most interest, the most follow-up questions? What's the thing that you kind of strike the chord of, like, okay, clearly there's a dearth of information in this area?
Easy answer. One word: lighting.
Okay.
People don't know that they need to learn about audio a lot more than they do, and
those are the top two for me. I find that people know absolutely nothing about audio. I mean,
nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Lighting, I found that people know that they need to use lights, and then that's where it stops. they don't really know how to. I mean, we could probably talk for days on that subject, but I was wondering if you were finding different things or if it's very very similar. But those two are the biggies.
Lighting is what puts people in the seats because they always want to learn more, and it's probably the one component of cinematography that people associate with the most. Obviously, lighting and composition is shared in other areas of the arts, painting, drawing to a certain degree, obviously photography. Obviously the third component of cinematography is camera movement, and that's also a big area of interest, but it still doesn't bring in as many people as lighting. And then audio for me, at the Filmmakers Intensive, I wanted the first session to be about lighting, but the way the program is structured, I have more time in the middle session every day. That's the most number of hours for the three sessions. So I made the second session all about audio, and we'll be continuing to reinforce that during the week because, well, we don't have to talk about it, but it's so important, and there's so many people who don't have a lot of education about it. I will kind of mention one guy who I think is creating exceptional content related to audio recording. He's based out of Canada. His name is Dean Miles, and he does a lot of stuff out there. Yeah, Dean Miles is pretty great educator and has some great stuff out there. So he has a book now.
Jem?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I lost you completely. Will you say that again?
Yeah, I was saying that in the area of audio, that there's an educator out there. His name is Dean Miles, and he has a number of books. Some of them are ebooks, and some of them are just paper books. But his latest one, I think, is called Audio for Camera Operators, or something like that. And it's really designed for people who are camera operators. And I think that it's important for people to have a reference guide, and I think that his is probably the best one. I can try to get a link for you later on, Mitch, so you can add it to the site. But it's a killer book.
Great.
Yeah.
I think we lost Barry, too.
We did. I hope he comes back. Is he allowed to come back?
He should be. I hope he is.
Yeah, so I think that Barry and I are on the same page as far as what people are looking for educationally. Right. Lighting. I teach people a lot about lighting for interviews, but lighting in a lot of other situations. And I find, and I think a lot of people would agree who teach, that a lot of the people who show up in our classes are what we would consider veterans. I mean, there are people who are also, people who have, new to this area, but the veterans who come in to, hey Barry, you back?
Hello.
Hey, so I was just talking about the fact that the people who come into our classes, there's definitely new filmmakers, there's new people to production, but there are a percentage of people who I would categorize as veterans. They've been doing this for a long time, 15 or 20 years, doing this kind of stuff. And one of the things that I do find is that even when it comes to something like lighting, we get into certain habits, or we approach lighting in a certain way. They approach lighting in a certain way, and then when people like us will show them different ways to light and control light in different ways, and also the fact that we have newer camera systems that are more sensitive to light than our smaller sensor, counterparts that people were using for a very long time. We have opportunities now to do things that were traditionally sort of saved for higher-end Hollywood-based production, where we're bouncing light or we're heavily diffusing light, and because our cameras are more sensitive, we still have to light, we still have to place our light where we want it, but we don't necessarily need to have the same kind of output from that light fixture or that light source. So we can now start to teach some of those things, and that light bulbs for people. Just when I teach people about bounce light, it's sort of light bulbs. And I show them in a classroom the difference between direct and even direct diffuse light and bounce light, and where they place the light, and show them how to do that stuff. It's pretty exciting to see, what happens in a classroom with that kind of stuff, and even for the veterans, the people who've been doing it for a long time. So that's fun.
And we lost Barry again.
I know.
Let me ask. Oh, he's back. Do you find that people who come to your classes tend to hire audio people to do their stuff so they don't feel like they have to learn it?
This is a great question. So I teach this thing every year, Postapalooza in Michigan, which is it's really my favorite conference to teach at, and it's a 4-day conference. The first 2 days are what are called the Power Up, where we go in and do a 2-day session, and then there's basically 2 days of multiple instructors in different rooms teaching things. And I'm going to teach an audio session there, and somebody wrote in that this is the worst session ever that you could teach because it's teaching people that you don't need to hire a sound recordist.
Right.
And so the title has to do with audio, for basically for production people who are not audio recordists. And then in the actual explanation, it says, while you should and hopefully can, or something to that effect, hire a sound recordist for every production, the nature of how our business is structured now and the way we have to do things, there are a lot of situations where we're forced to do sound ourselves. That's just it. He's bouncing. He's bouncing. It's creepy time. Can we get the sound effect when you start bouncing? But they didn't read the description. I mean, as a producer, I hire a sound recordist on almost every single job that I do. So to me, sound is critical, and to spend $500 to $750 a day for somebody to take that much stress out of my production and be responsible completely for the sound that is recorded is worth every penny. And if you put it into your budget ahead of time, and you can for certain types of projects, then that's great. But for me, there are many other situations where it's just myself and one other person, and we're completely responsible for every aspect of the production. And so in those situations, people need to be armed with some knowledge about how they can get good quality audio in most production environments. And they won't have a mixer generally. They won't be able to mix the sound the same way sound recordists will. They may have a little bit more work to do with that sound in post-production. But understanding not only that we have lavalier microphones and we have boom mics, but there are different types of condenser microphones that you would have on a boom pole, or and what those pickup or polar patterns are, and what kinds of lavalier mics are out there. Those are all the things that people need to learn about, because it'll help them make decisions about what microphones they actually need if they are in fact responsible for their own audio on a production. Is that a good long answer for that?
That's an awesome answer. And I think what you're also trying to say is that if you as a filmmaker have the knowledge of how to do a lot of that stuff, you can plan things differently so that you know what the sound people are going to need, as opposed to just trusting them completely. You should have some knowledge of that stuff for yourself.
There's no question. I mean, my goal when I started producing, which means that I had no idea what I was doing producing, 15 years ago, was when I realized I was hiring people and instinctually it didn't seem like they were doing things in a way that I thought would be efficient. That's when I decided to learn production myself, because the goal is always to understand the big picture so that you can hire people who are better at you than what you're doing. And if you're forced to, or you're in a situation where you have to do it yourself, then you can do an adequate to a good job of it without ruining the production. But then you're also, as you're saying, Mitch, you're able to hire people and you're able to think about the things that they're going to think about. I've actually had a sound recordist come with me to a location and walk all of the different spaces that I've scouted to shoot interviews, and they've given me a list from top to bottom of worst to best locations, and then I can make decisions about where I'm going to shoot those things. And we also have tools available to us right now that make life really easy for us to scout for audio. I mean, one example is right now when I walk around to a location, I just take a little smart lav and I take the Road Rec app and I record a lavalier in each of the locations so I can hear what a lav would sound like in that location. I also normally bring a 5D Mark III with me with the little Rode Video Mic Pro, and I take an extension cable, because you can buy like an extension to it into your camera. And what I'll do is I'll walk around and I'll put the mic here, and I'll put it in basically the position that I would have a condenser microphone, and I'll record the audio to that, or maybe to like a Tascam DR60, you know, I mean, you know, the 60D, the Tascam recorder, and then I will go back and I'll listen to cha-ching. I'll go back and listen to those recordings and figure out what is and isn't working from an audio standpoint. And I can also bring that audio into, you know, into an application in post and decide whether or not I can fix those problems if they're there based on using EQ. If I can use a plugin like Isotope's RX, you might want to cha-ching that one because it's not inexpensive, but it's amazing. They have a thing called Dialogue Denoiser, which is so much better than anything else out there to take out background noise when you're recording dialogue. So all of those things are great. Tell me.
I'm sorry, I've been wanting to get to the Isotope tools because I've been reading about them, and I'm like, man, I really need to know more about that, because there are situations where I need to remove certain bits of sound, or like you said, some audio behind the voice.
Yeah.
And
here I am with an iPhone headphone on. This is like the worst. Here I am with iPhone headphones on, and we're talking about audio. Pretty embarrassing.
Those are high quality audio, aren't they?
$29.
Woohoo!
That doesn't even get a cha-ching.
No.
Yeah, it's really Isotope RX. You know, it's the advanced version, and they will run specials on it sometimes. It is an expensive package, but if you are dealing with audio, especially if you're doing documentary or corporate and you're doing a lot of interviews, I think it's money incredibly well spent. So I was very excited the first time I used their Dialogue Denoiser, because a lot of the other ones out there will sort of get to this point where when you're taking out background noise, it crosses over and gets into the frequencies of our voices, and then it starts to sound very robotic, or almost sort of underwater robotic. Is the best way I can explain it. And you don't really experience those problems because of whatever genius engineers they have there in some basement creating algorithms over at Isotope. They're probably somewhere in Eastern Europe, and they're way too smart for their own good. Maybe Scandinavia. There's not a lot of sunlight in Norway, so maybe they're.
This is Tim Hicks.
I apologize.
No, it's fine.
I didn't think clicking there would cause that to do that. I wanted to ask you, though, because this particular clip that came in from Tim Hicks is way clipped. I mean, he must have been like muzzling the microphone all with his mouth.
Yep.
Does Isotope fix stuff like this?
This is Tim Hicks, and I'm a creative professional working out of Southeast Missouri.
How distorted that is?
That didn't hurt my ears at all. There are tools inside of there that will help with that. But when we talk about digital sound and we talk about clipping, there is, in very many ways, a point of no return.
Right.
And that's why in production it's so important at times to, depending on who you're recording and what you're doing, activate a limiter in your recording device, because the limiter will, I mean, I did something with Robin Williams once, and we definitely made a decision to use the limiter when we were recording, because what the limiter basically does is when you start to get towards 0 on a digital meter, of course, if you go above that, you clip your audio. And so by activating the limiter, it made sure that
James would be the perfect guy to do that for.
So yeah, he really was, and trust me, it was good that we used the limiter. So I mean, a lot of it goes kind of back to what Barry was, asking about. A lot of it is learning about best practices in production. Fix it in post is not the way I like to do it.
Sure.
I think a better way of saying is to enhance in post. That's the first time I've said that, but whatever. And so, because what you want to do is you want to start with good bones. You want a good sort of foundation to what you're doing, and then you want to build on that in post-production. There's always going to be problems. That's what the nature of our business is to be as prepared as possible for production, so that we're minimizing the amount of things we have to handle on set, and that we can also confront and actually handle the problems that do come up. A little tip for some people that at least I do when I do projects is anytime I'm shooting, when I'm done with the project and I'm doing the post myself, I take the production audio and I take the picture and I take it from any cameras that I'm shooting and I create a test timeline and I bring in all of the footage that I need to, that I think has problems, and I work out all of my solutions to all of the problems for that shoot before I actually start editing the project. So if there's a shot it has soft focus, I'll figure out how I'm going to fix the soft focus shot before I start editing. If there's a sound issue that needs to be EQ'd or is problematic, I'll figure out what my approach to that's going to be before I start doing that. That doesn't mean that I don't wait till lock picture to do final color correction or final sound mix. But what I want to do is I want to take the stress out of what my attention is on for all the little problems that I know may have been a problem. I'll work out a timeline that has clips in it that basically has all of those fixes in them. And then when I actually start to get into the editorial process, now I'm focusing on story, because I know that those problems can be fixed instead of saying I have problems. Because what happens mentally is your attention is on all those problems as you're trying to tell a story. So
Right.
that's not necessarily something that everybody does. Some people may do it, but I have found that since I started doing that a couple of years ago, it's made my life so much easier to just focus on putting the pieces together, to taking the jigsaw puzzle and putting it together. So
That's
does
a
that make
great
sense?
piece of advice.
Yeah.
That's another one of my sound clips from an earlier show.
Let me hear it again.
But nobody can tell that it's not me live.
Oh yeah.
That's a great piece of advice.
I wasn't
That's a
actually
great piece of advice.
I wasn't looking at your mouth when you did that. I was taking a sip of coffee, and then
Well,
there you go.
And the people listening in that aren't watching don't know that my mouth isn't moving. So that's
Where's-
a great piece of advice.
Where's Barry though? I
We've
feel
lost him.
I feel like the triangle has been broken. It's a little depressing.
Oh, it's only depressing being with me. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that we were going to go down this sort of completely non-productive 80s, time warp, and we didn't get to do that. But I think it's good that we're talking about the things that we're talking about. And what I do like to talk about is, of course, this stuff. So please ask me a couple more questions or a few more questions about this.
Well, I was going to go into gear. Don't you want to talk about gear?
I always like to talk about gear. Yeah, let's do it. I'm ready. I'm prepared.
I want to know the current demand or best use of 4K in the industry, or is it still too early?
Well, I'll give you my whole viewpoint on this if you're ready for it.
I'm ready.
Okay, so we are at the point now in post-production where, from an editorial standpoint, we can handle 4K. And we can handle it, for the most part, except for the storage requirements, unless we're using a heavily compressed format. So you take the GH4 and it's 100 megabits per second. That's very manageable in terms of size of file, even though it's 4K. It's
Right.
pretty comparable to a broadcast quality codec for full HD. But it's really the hardware catching up with what it has to deal with. And when the new Mac Pro was released, we finally got a computer system that was available to people that would allow them to handle what we're dealing with nowadays, which is generally, in many situations, at least a two-camera situation. So multicam has become very normal now in production. And how do you handle two 4K streams and deal with that in post? Well, the Mac Pro is allowing you to do that and handle those files in a very similar way that we were dealing with full HD files. So I think that was part of the equation. 4K has been around for quite a while now, but we needed that post-production component that was relatively cost-effective for people who were going to do this. Then we go backwards to when 4K. Why should we be acquiring in 4K, and should we be acquiring? And I think, to me, the simple answer is short-term, long-term. So if you're creating content that has short-term lifespan and is going to be out there and is not going to live for a very long time, then I don't think 4K factors into the discussion right now. It may become eventually the normal resolution that we deal with, just like Full HD is right now. It took a the transition from standard definition to high definition was a much more complicated transition. And one of the most complicated transitions was the fact that we were changing aspect ratio. So we were going from a 4:3 aspect ratio to a 16:9. And while some people, especially in places like Europe, had been doing 16:9 in standard definition for quite a while, for a lot of people that was a big change, a huge change to go from there. So going from Full HD to 4K, we don't have that same aspect ratio change. We're still dealing fundamentally, especially when we talk about Ultra HD, we're talking about a 16:9 aspect ratio. It's slightly different for Cinema 4K, but for Ultra HD, which will be the resolution that we deal with, which is exactly 4 times, the number, it's like taking Full HD 4 times,
Right.
2 by and 2 by. We've got an easy transition there. So it really has to do with storage space and how manageable the files are, how much space they take up, how fast your computer system is, and again, short-term, long-term. So for Full HD, I mean, I own 2 C100s. I'm going to be doing a lot of production with those cameras for quite a while. When I shoot the educational videos that I do for Canon, those are all shot on C100s now using Ninja blades. So we're recording in ProRes. We're getting a good quality picture that we can do stuff with. We're generally shooting wide dynamic range gamma, though sometimes we'll use Canon Log or Cinema Locked for stuff that we do. But I really like wide DR. And I think that that's going to serve its purpose very well for educational content, for web-based content. It's when you want to future-proof content. If I was being hired as a producer to produce a television show, or I was going to produce a feature film, anything that I think is going to live for a long time, that's where I think people should be seriously thinking about 4K. I think certain specialized applications where you're shooting things where, like aerial photography, so you're on drones and you're specialized stuff, wildlife, I think 4K may be advantageous. Because in those situations, it may make sense to go in and punch in on a shot and reframe, but I'm not a big fan of using 4K to reframe and post for Full HD, because I think that's going to bite people in the ass in the future, because you're going to go ahead and shoot a project in 4K, edit it in Full HD or 1920 by 1080, and 2 years later the client's going to come back and say, oh, by the way, we need the 4K version of that for our new station or whatever it's going to be, and you're going to be like, well, I can give you a 4K version of it, but it's going to be up-resed if you want it to look the way it does. And of course, I think that a lot of people may get into a lot of bad habits. I think that reframing in post using 4K has its place, but don't make it the norm, because guess what? In a few years, you're going to be starving for an 8K camera so you can reframe for 4K, and that's going to be a problem. Does that make sense?
I've already heard people talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
absolutely. I think you're right on there with several points. Very impressed with your knowledge.
Oh, goodness gracious. And that's not really a gear discussion. That's really talking about how we acquire, content. And obviously the GH4 is our first truly affordable, there have been other 4K cameras, but when we talk about a camera that has features in it that we as filmmakers and, video content producers may want, the GH4 is a very interesting camera. Pardon me. Because of its price point and it records 4K internally. It's not the right camera for me. And part of that has to do with sensor size, and that I'm not drawn to micro four thirds as a sensor size. Right. But I think that it's the right camera for a lot of people and for certain applications. I'm very interested in what companies like Canon do in the future with their Cinema EOS line, and I'm hoping they do more with that in the area of 4K.
May I interrupt you there, because there's a lot of rumors floating around that the 7D Mark II, or whatever it's going to be called, better be 4K or Canon's going to drop the ball. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that people say that Canon's going to drop the ball a lot, and and the C300 and the C100 have been wildly successful camera systems.
Very true.
And people can knock them for certain things, and somewhat rightfully so. I mean, clearly Canon hasn't arrived when it comes to high speed, and I think that Sony has done a much better job of that. I mean, I did at one point own an FS700, and it's a camera system that I like very much as an all-around camera system for certain people, and I recommend that people look at the FS700 if they are certain types of content producers. So if you're doing commercials and you want to shoot music videos and you also want to do corporate work, then the FS700 may be a much better choice than a C100. For me and the type of content that I produce, two C100s was a better choice for the kind of content that I produce and how the camera system works. So high speed is definitely an issue. Of course, I'd love to see ProRes in a Canon camera. They do have the 1DC, which people will argue is very expensive, but remember that the 1DC came out long, long before the GH4 did, and long before the A7S will, which is just right around the corner. And so Canon's approach seems to be a little less of the Sony, I'll throw up a camera, every time I create a sensor and see what sticks. And then Panasonic is very conservative, but what they've clearly done is, historically in the last few years, focused on the GH line and evolved that to what we see now in the GH4. And now they are coming to the table with the Vericam line, the new Vericam line, with sort of the two-sensor approach and the high end of the market. But Canon sort of, tell me about it. And then Canon sort of sits in the middle. But remember that when it comes to camera companies, that for many reasons, and of course the Dragon sensor is supposed to be amazing from Red, but in many situations it's really Sony and it's Canon that are pushing sensor technology ahead, and they make their own sensors. And so I think that long term we'll see a lot of interesting stuff happen from both of those companies. And if the 7D Mark II or whatever that next camera comes out doesn't have 4K, it just may not be on Canon's roadmap. And if it does, then it is. And who knows what that camera system is going to be. I've always said, or I won't say always because I haven't been around forever, I mean, doing this stuff, that there is no perfect camera. And we're even finding that out right now with the GH4. Sure. Every camera comes out and everybody thinks this is the holy grail. Well, you know what? It's the holy grail for a percentage of people. And then people find out, oh, it doesn't do this. I mean, the A7S looks fantastic on paper. It doesn't record 4K internally, which is not a problem for me. And it has a recording limit of just under 30 minutes. So that could be a deal breaker for certain people. But for other people, it may not matter at all. I'm looking at that camera from an interest standpoint for maybe different reasons than other people are. I'm really looking at that camera as a low-light camera. I'm looking at it as a camera that would be used for full HD initially, and then will be used with 4K external recording when needed. And I'm looking at it as a camera that would in many ways be perfect for camera support systems like Movies and drones. And it's supposed to have amazing dynamic range, so you're going to not have blown out windows here and all kinds of things you get with eyesight cameras. And so, I really look at each camera for hopefully its strengths, and then I decide whether or not that's a camera system that can fit into what I'm doing and not just be a hobbyist camera like my Fuji XE2. That's just for me to take stills, and that was like a selfish purchase, but most of my purchases are made based on whether or not they can be working cameras for the type of work that I do, and they can do the job and hopefully make some money to take care of it.
How many cameras do you have right now?
Well, working cameras, meaning that they're out on jobs a lot, mainly my two C100s. I do have a 5D Mark III, and that's used in a true hybrid sense. I use it as a scouting camera. I do use it for video occasionally, mainly in the classroom now, and then I do use it a lot for stills. And then I still have my 5D Mark II, and then I will never give up my Panasonic DVX100 that sits on the shelf. It's my mini DV deck, but I love that camera and what it produced. And but you know, and then I have others. You know, there's GoPros in there and whatever other little things hanging out. But my workhorses are my C100s, and I'm very happy with those. I wish they had a timecode port, but save for the timecode port. I think that most of the other issues are worked out for the time being, and I'm very happy. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No.
No.
What cameras you have doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make any sense at all. And if I had the money and I could just have it in the bag all the time, I would probably have an FS700 sitting in there, because to be able to fall back on at 240 frames per second in full HD is nice at times, but I have not found that it's critical for the type of work that I've been doing over the last couple of years.
Well, that's one of the things that I was surprised the last time I did a survey, was that people said they absolutely had to have 120 frames per second. And
Really?
it was fairly highly rated.
Mm.
And I'm like, I just don't see that many people using.
What we want and what we do are sometimes entirely different.
Yeah.
And I want a lot of things. And with age, I think I've calmed the beast. You know, I've sort of subdued and figured out what actually is used. And so, and I usually wait now. And it's pretty interesting, you know, to sort of see how people view all of this stuff. But learning craft is the key to it all.
Right.
I mean, you put the shittiest camera in the world. Do we have to bleep that? The shittiest camera in the world in the hands of a great cinematographer, and magic will happen. And as you progressively give them a better camera system, there will be certain things that you get out of the picture that will give people more to work with in post-production. But the basic picture will be properly exposed as long as they can lock exposure, and it will be lit beautifully, and as long as the sound component is taken into consideration, all of the other things will work. And you're bouncing again. You're doing it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do it all day.
I'm on a regular chair. I saw you. So in the intro, some of your music is a dubstep music, and that's the stuff that you were bouncing to. So I think you like dubstep. That's what I'm saying. I don't mind.
Actually, I don't really care one way or the other. I just like music.
Yeah, me too. A lot.
Anyway.
Yeah. So more tech questions.
Well, actually, I'm going to cut you off.
Okay.
We're already at an hour and a half, and I know that's hard to believe. Not an hour and a half, an hour and 5 minutes.
An hour and 10 minutes. Come on.
And what I'd like to do is save you for another day.
Okay.
I would like to remind people about your upcoming seminar called the filmmakerintensive.com.
With an S, plural, the Filmmakers Intensive. Thank you.
Filmmakers, as in apostrophe, but you can't use one of those.
And I do in the copy, but not in the web address. So. Yeah.
That's a very good point. Filmmakers Intensive. I apologize for spelling it wrong.
No, that's cool.
Saying it wrong. And your website is?
The C47.com, so THEC47.com, and then for the program, the filmmakersintensive.com. And that's where to find me for stuff, I guess.
Yeah. And I apologize because not a single person online has asked a question or even tried to define where the C47 name came from.
What is going on here?
I don't know. I've prompted them several times and they don't seem to want to respond.
Nobody wants to run a free Smart Law Plus from Rode.
You know, I'm very impressed.
Huh?
I'm sorry?
That said, I mean, this is their chance. They can't do it after the show.
That's right. You will have missed out. I'm very impressed with the new Smart Lav. I don't have one yet. Do you?
I do not have it yet. I will be getting one shortly when it's available and arrives from Australia. And I will definitely be testing it. And then the Rode Rec app just got updated about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So that's been updated to sort of be raring to go. And I think, yeah, they're doing some exciting stuff in audio. So it's good stuff.
I really, really love what Rode's doing.
It's a good company. Yeah, you should have a lower end because most of their solutions are very cost effective. So maybe there's like a lower cha-ching. That cha-ching right there was for the Ari Alexa and for the new Vericam from Panasonic. And then you should have like a cha-ching. And you do like this. Cha-ching. And that's
Well,
like
I'll just take that audio and use it next week.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I didn't tell you ahead of time that I was going to be stealing audio out of here, did I?
I didn't see that release form, but I don't know. But there is the general release that you sign when you use the Hangout video app with Google Plus. So obviously I've sold my soul to the devil here.
And you read every word of that when you approved it?
I did. It took me all of about 3 seconds. and check box and click OK.
Liar. Liar.
Good.
Mercy.
Do you need me to say anything? Am I going to give you a little promo? You said at the end of the show, Jem, I'm going to have you do something.
Well, you can do it right now if you want.
What do you want me to say? I'll just say. Well, I will say this. If this is this has been a long time. It's been a long time since the last time we did a Planet 5D podcast. And I have to say that my hangout with Barry and Mitch today, in terms of questions, once we got past all of the noise at the beginning, with the no introduction and everything else, and my interviewing the both of them, I think that some of the questions that you both asked were really great questions and allowed me to kind of talk about some of the things that I'm focused on. So I appreciate that, and hopefully people will get something out of this and future episodes of the Planet 5D podcast, coming to you live from Alf and Planet 5D himself and the mess of a shelf system that is Camera Right. I feel real jiggly! Yoo-hoo! Thank you very much.
I messed up my pants.
Messed up my pants.
Whoa, you better record that one.
Or this one applies, I think, to the beginning of the show.
What the hell happened here?
I spend a lot of time trying to figure out the right thing, and it's just not working yet. Anyway, so let's say goodbye and appreciate everybody who's tuned in. And if anybody wants to create a rating for us over on iTunes, that would be terrific. And I want to thank Jem Scofield from the C47.com for being our guest today.
People can ask me questions. I'm stepping all over you, but people can ask me questions on the C47.com too. There's a place where they can contact me, and if they want to follow up on stuff, come over and send me an email.
That's an awesome offer.
Anytime.
And so let's wrap this baby up. I'm going to play a few clips on the way out. If you'll just hang on just a second after I get through all this excitement, we'll talk about the really good stuff behind the scenes.
That's the worst goodbye I've ever heard. And you stole it from a movie.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
It's a perfect ending.
Okay, Barry, time to go home now.
I had a fun time. Now turn that off.
Thanks, Jem.
Thank you. I should have used my iPhone's light during the whole time. I just realized, why didn't I just prop that up somewhere? Look how much better it is. Holy crap. It would have been, it was like 1,000 times better just with my stupid light. I just put it right here, look.
It does give you a nose shadow.
It does, but I can position that. I would have worked that out back in the